I've never really looked at myself as an artist. It's not a skin that I live in very comfortably when other people call me an artist. You know, it's something I do. I never thought of it. It's like a plumber, you know, he fixes taps. The chef makes the meal, and I make a picture, you know. I don't think there's anything gifted about what I do, you know, just something I do. I was born in a place called Thornley, a small mining town in the north of England, on the 2nd of the 6th, 1925, which was a long time ago. We came out as 10-pound bombs. I had my second birthday, according to my grandmother, in Cape Town. We came straight to Warners Bay to my mum's mother.
What are your earliest memories of Warners Bay? How do you see it in your mind's eye through a child's memory?
Water, the lake, yeah.
Tom Gleghorn grew up in Warners Bay during the Great Depression, in a hut with walls made of whitewash bags and a dirt floor. Yet in this time of so little, the lake offered so much. To a child, Warners Bay seemed like an adventure playground.
My memory of lake and the industrial background of Newcastle is indelibly engraved in my mind. It's just there, what I grew out of.
Those childhood memories of the lake shaped so many of his works, including Games in the Late Dawn.
Nigel, nice to meet you. Welcome.
That monumental work now hangs in the Adelaide Hills home of Tom's son-in-law, Nigel Bateman.
The scale of it and the energy of it's extraordinary.
It's incredible.
As somebody who has known him a long time, what is it about Tom that has kept him going with art? Because he's been now painting, and your walls show it. He's been painting for more than 7 decades. Yeah, forever.
Yeah.
What do you think it is that keeps him going?
I love the painting, obviously, but I think he's just a man of many talents. He just sees stuff out there and he's got to put it on paper. I think, it's logged in his memory. Well, there's no good in there. So he wants to put it on canvas.
Tom Gleghorn's reminiscences of lake life are enshrined not just in paint, but in his memories of those who helped him grow, including a man named Joe Westcott.
Dear Joe, yeah. Joe was a Glaswegian, and he was living in a tent in Warners Bay, and he saw me wandering around and wanted to know why I wasn't at school. And I was 6. He spoke to me a little about reading, and of course I couldn't read. I hadn't been to school. And he read me Aesop's Fables, different sort of unreal reality, you know, and it was just opened up another world.
Now that name, Joe Westcott, would later return to Tom Gleghorn's life. But as a teenager during the early years of the Second World War, Tom seemed destined for a life as an engineer at BHP's Newcastle Steelworks.
I was stuck with it. I wasn't over enamoured about it, but apparently I was reasonably good at it. You know, I worked with the Geordie engineers on the first marine engine built in Australia, in the BHP Iron and Steel.
Then just married at 21, Tom Gleghorn brushed his way towards a different future when he found a set of dried up paints that his father owned.
I remember asking him, how do you mix it? He's very, very brusque about it, you know. He said, well, you mix oil with it. Well, okay, the only oil I had was California poppy hair oil. Anyhow, I mixed the California poppy hair oil and did this painting.
He entered that painting, a landscape titled The Open Road, in an art prize in Newcastle, and he won.
The prize wasn't financial, it was a whole load of rubbish, I thought at that stage. You know, oil paints and watercolours and brushes, and I was an overload of this stuff. So I'm stuck with them. And then I started to fiddle around.
Been fiddling around ever
Just
since.
fiddling around. Been fiddling around ever since, yeah.
To give him ideas how to use his prize, Tom's wife Elsie took him to the Art Gallery of New South Wales in 1949, and there he saw a familiar scene painted by a Lake Macquarie artist. It was William Dobell's Win Prize landscape, Storm Approaching Wangi.
I was enthralled with that, enthralled with it. The experience of standing, looking at a painting of the lake and capturing those subtleties that I used to experience in a tin canoe that we made from the sheets of iron pinched from the back of a fowl house. I was enthralled again that people could handle a substance and finish up with an image. That was the primary thought. Then the image that this particular artist came up with was an area that I was so familiar with. It was my backyard wholly and solely. And of course that impressed me.
When he returned to Warners Bay, Tom headed straight to Dobell's house at Wangi Wangi.
So I just made it my business to ride my bike round and knock on his door, very rudely, but I didn't care anymore. With overpowering quest, knocked on his door and said, excuse me, name's Tom, I really would like to paint. And rather than turn me away, he took me in, yeah. Without him I wouldn't have painted. You know, he helped me technically. By that I mean he explained a lot about materials. He was sitting on a corner of the table in his studio, and we were talking about the lake, of course. Picked up the brush, and about 10 brush strokes, did a lovely little sketch of view from his studio window, just a boat and the foreshore, and it was magical. And I thought, oh, goodness me, you know. And the greatest art lesson I've ever had in my life.
Remarkably, the subject of one of Dobell's most famous portraits, a billy boy who the painter had seen while working as a camouflage artist at the nearby Rathmines Air Base during the war, was none other than Joe Westcott.
He was regarded as an oaf, and to me he was a man of stature. He's a part of the opening of my visual world.
Just as William Dobell was for Tom Gleghorn.
At that particular time, my frame of mind, my emotional and mental want to do something, express my way in some way, just opened a whole new pathway to my thinking and feeling about the landscape around me.
For Tom Gleghorn, his new pathway was abstraction. Not that he saw it that way.
I don't think it is abstraction. Right. It's my type of reality. I was trying to take reality further and further. Then they said in Art Crit that I was became a well-known abstract expressionist, and I just shrugged my shoulders. Had nothing to do with me at all. I was still trying to get something a little bit different in my painting.
When you say you were seeking your type of reality, what was that?
A further visual explanation to try and visually talk to viewers of my paintings and trying to explain to them visually about a landscape or about a subject.
In the mid-1950s, Tom and Elsie moved to Sydney. His paintings attracted awards and more attention, as well as admirers, including the renowned writer Patrick White. Above the novelist's desk hung a storm of paint with Tom Gleghorn's Coast Wind.
Coast Wind, of course, was the southerly of the Newcastle southerlies. When I remember lunch breaks at the BHP, the evening, shift work of an evening, the dog watch early morning, standing on the wharf with these southerlies, very much the southerlies that I grew up with on Lake Macquarie. A bit more boisterous, but not as poetic as the lake ones.
In the early 1960s, having won the Helena Rubinstein Travelling Scholarship, Tom and his family lived and worked in Europe. In the old world, Tom absorbed new ideas as he responded to the places he saw, including standing amid the ruins of Pompeii.
I certainly remember doing it because the getting back to Joe Westcott and his education, and you stand in the streets of Pompeii. I remember in Pompeii, Aesop's Fables, and brought it home to me. And then that's when I decided that I'll do some little thing. It turned out a bit bigger than a little thing.
When he returned to Australia, Tom Gleghorn wanted to explore the country's heart by painting it.
Well, I knew more about Europe than I knew about Australia. And I came back from overseas, from the Rubinstein, with that intent to discover Australia. No, that's not quite true. I came back to try and understand a little bit about the country that I lived in and wanted to live in.
I think you can see that real connection. This one in particular at the McDonnell Ranges, you're almost standing there in that Hermannsburg region. You can see the colours and you can feel the heat and the dryness of the central Australian desert, and I just think he really captures that in a beautiful way.
And here we have yet again another inland painting. He loved journeying into the soul of the country, and I guess in some ways into the soul of the artist.
Yes, yeah. He loves the bush, he loves the outback. And this one, once again, I've mentioned it earlier, you go inland and you there you see it as one thing, and then once you're in there you go, Tommy's painting again. Yeah. And he's got the colours, they're all vibrant, and those colours are actually out there. You think, nah, that's not real. No, it is, yeah.
As well as being a visual interpreter of Australia, Tom Gleghorn has been a teacher of artists, including in Adelaide, where he and his family have lived since the 1960s.
The most comfortable part of my life of living has been in Adelaide. The most discovering part of my life of who I was, or who I am, and what I believe in, of course, is Lake Macquarie, the Newcastle bit. That's the beginning.
Tom Gleghorn may have left the Newcastle area in the 1950s, but the city and the lake have never left him, or his art.
You can see I can't get away from it.
Back in 1959, Tom Gleghorn's first solo exhibition in a public gallery was in Newcastle. The show was opened by Patrick White. Now, 61 years later, this survey of Tom's work is being held back where it all began. His art is homeward bound.
It's an honour, of course. It's a belief of other people I can't understand, but I accept with the utmost humility and a huge wave of thankfulness that overpowers me with the generous offer of a survey.
He started here in '59 with the show. We actually acquired our first work from that exhibition in 1959, and we're continuing to acquire today. And I think we have, across our broad cross-section of works, 40 odd years of his practice, and to have him still consider us as home is wonderful.
for all the places that art has taken him, for all the experiences that art has given him, Tom Gleghorn has never lost sight of his earliest years around Newcastle and the lake, and he can't imagine having spent his life doing anything other than creating, even if he doesn't call himself an artist.
I just paint. It's what I do. It's given me a chance to expose visually what I feel about life, living, and love of other people, and the kindness and devotion of other people's emotion that I've been showered with during my lifetime.